President Trump had a stark warning for Russia-Ukraine peace talks after his phone call with Russian President Putin, saying, quote, good conversation, not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say very strongly that we will have to respond to the recent attacks on their airfields. Today at the White House, Trump is expected to discuss the war when he meets with Germany's new chancellor, who is fervently in Ukraine's court. Here to discuss, Fox News contributor, former CIA station chief Dan Hoffman. First, Dan, as a covert operation, this has been brilliant by the Ukrainians, blowing up the bridge underwater and those trucks strategically put inside Russia that blew up those airfields. These are military targets.
Yeah, they smuggled in over 100 drones, and reportedly it took 18 months to plan this operation. It's an intelligence success for Ukraine, a tactical success of extraordinary proportions, and a massive intelligence failure for Vladimir Putin. I'm sure that heads will be rolling, maybe not literally but figuratively, in the Russian military and their intelligence service. But remember, this isn't the first major intelligence failure for Putin, who really failed accurately to assess Ukraine's will and capacity to fight from the very beginning.
Right. What could they do? They say, we're going to react strongly to the attacks over the weekend. OK, what have they been doing for 3 years? And they've got 1 million casualties.
Yeah, look, they've got a few less bombers right now to launch those indiscriminate attacks, which have killed or wounded tens of thousands of Ukrainian civilians. And that's really the goal for Ukraine. They've got air defenses that stop a lot of these ballistic missiles, but not all of them. And so for Ukraine, it was, let's go hit the archer, the one directing the arrows at us, and maybe we'll have fewer arrows directed at our hospitals and neighborhoods and maternity wards as a result.
Yeah, Russia is grinding to a halt. They suspect every truck has drones, every driver is Ukrainian, so they are panicked. Meanwhile, NATO summit's going on right now. Our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was addressing the member nations. And guess what? They are open to now going from 2 to 5% on the defense commitment. Listen.
We think very close, almost near consensus, on a 5% commitment for NATO in The Hague later this month. We're spending 13% more on our defense inside our formations in real capabilities. We need our allies here in Europe and in Canada to step up even more, to step up and take the lead, to recognize the defense of the continent as the core mission. So 5% is our message, and we will deliver that.
And you know what's fascinating? The Chancellor of Germany wants to do it. The UK is bulking up their military, and Poland has surpassed all thresholds. Your thoughts about this, the message from Pete Hegseth?
It's a great message, and it's long overdue. And the more that Europe steps up to provide for the defense that the continent needs, the better prepared they'll be to deter Russia in the future, and the more resources the United States will have to deal with other threats around the world, specifically in the Asia and Pacific, dealing with the potential for China to launch an attack on Taiwan. So this is a fantastic development.
Real quick, you have the President of the United States retweeting a Washington Post column by Mark Thiessen that talked about giving the president the leverage he needs and putting that Senate sanctions bill on his desk that has over 80 senators' votes. How important would that be? And would those sanctions send the right message to Russia?
I think it would be the right message. Look, President Trump has tried to entice Vladimir Putin to the bargaining table, and so far that hasn't worked. And so we might want to look and see what kind of leverage we might have. We might need to use what former Secretary of State George Shultz used to like to call, say that negotiations without the shadow of force behind them results in capitulation. And so I think we need to show that we have more leverage, and this is a really good way to do it and demonstrate to the Kremlin that they're going to pay more of a price in the event that they don't agree to the ceasefire to which Ukraine already agreed.
They lost Syria because they went into Ukraine. They also have NATO, 2 more strong members of NATO because they went into Ukraine. Dan, thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it. Dan Hoffman.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.